Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys are in for it because I've known Yusuf for a very long time. Like I think I know Yusuf when I was in UI, and Yusuf has always stood out to be like a trailblazer, like in everything, like whether be it in the how do I call it in the healthcare space, research, like he has been in the forefront of pushing strides for healthcare professionals, pharmacy, and all of those kind of professions. I'm really, really excited that we are able to, have the opportunity to learn from you, Yusuf. So thank you. Please let's just welcome him. Like I don't know what to say. Yusuf is someone that I remember several years ago when I was just very pissed off that what's happening? Why is it that research don't actually translate to something meaningful in Nigeria? Back then I was always very I remember the first person that came to my mind back then, like, was Yusuf, and I was like, I just texted me. I think I don't remember the name I called it. So something research, something. I was like, Yusuf, let's do something for you student. I was like, this does not make sense. That I think there was a picture that was trending back then of piles of research. It was in a dump, and I forwarded it to him. I was like, this is wrong. Like this is not right. People do a lot of work, and then it ends nowhere. And I'm so happy that at the end of the day, after many years, I'm able to do something with great minds like Yusuf to push that frontier. So thank you, Yusuf, for making it to this training today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Awesome, thank you. So I think we just get started. We're recording this session, so anybody who's not here can go back. We'll send a reminder also to the students. I think everyone has done a great job doing that. I don't know since this week she's been doing that. So last month, I mean 2 months ago, we had a research challenge, and we had over a lot of students like we apply for the research because we're giving out mini grant, just like a give back project, just a one-off give back project to just like support students that are doing research, in terms of healthcare. And we're very impressed about the level of thoughtfulness some of their research projects were. We awarded 5 of them the grants just to support their research project. We did some training for a couple of them. I mean, all of them, everybody, we invited some top leaders in different areas, data analysis, research writing, abstract, communicating your research, all of them. We had like 6 sessions, right? And so today, a lot of people, all of them have been reaching out, want to publish our research. How do we publish our research? And I didn't know anybody better person than you because I know back then, even when you were an undergrad, you had over 100 research public, if not more, right? You had hosting health research conferences here and there. And, it's really, we are here to learn from you, and I'll just give you the floor. Yusuf Adebayo Adebisi is a dynamic global health advocate. He's a pharmacist, epidemiologist, and health systems researcher committed to advancing public health research through research, innovation, and advocacy. He earned his pharmacy degree from the University of Ibadan and furthered his education with an MSc in global health science and epidemiology from the University of Oxford. As a Commonwealth scholar currently, Yusuff is pursuing a PhD in the University of Glasgow, focusing on epidemiology and health inequalities, with funding from the Economic and Social Research Council. With over 200 journal articles and contributions, you jam your hands, and 7 book chapters, Yusuf is recognized as one of Nigeria's top 100 researchers. In 2022, Yusuf received the prestigious Princess Diana Award for his scientific contribution to Africa. And in 2024, he was awarded a grant by Robert Koch Institute to advance antimicrobial resistance in 13 ECOWAS countries. Through his work with various organizations, Yusuf continues to influence global health policies, cementing his role as a change maker and an inspiration to young researchers across Africa and beyond. Please, with digital innovation, let's just jam our hands for Yusuf. Yusuf is not old though, he's a very young guy, and you see what he has accomplished. So it's an inspiration to all of us. I'm here to learn from you, and we're all here to learn from you. So thank you, Yusuf, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's always an honor to have the opportunity to share my insight when it comes to research, because research is quite important. And what I tell people is that without meaningful investment in research, we cannot have development. And I'm glad that the current generation, the passion, the energy to advance knowledge is so exciting. And I'm sure the future is in good hands for us to fund and do more meaningful research, that we advance knowledge, that's why they call it research and development. Because research and development actually goes hand in hand. And before we can have any major advancement, we need to invest more in research. And thank you very much for the invitation. I'm always excited to share my knowledge, my insight with fellow early career researcher. So today, we're talking about how to actually get your research published. It is quite important to have articles, research published. And in this discussion, you'll be able to learn why and how you can actually go about publishing your own work. And as Ezine said, I still remember the photo uh, where the dissertation of different students are actually dumped somewhere. That should not be. We need to try as much as possible to get this work published. We need to get them out there. And that's why I always think about the fact that when we say we don't have data, do you know the total number of students annually in Africa that are actually doing undergraduate research? A whole lot. PhD research, master's thesis. But where are they? So we also ask ourselves those questions when we are saying we don't have data. Many of these people, they are doing interesting and amazing work, but most of the time they don't end up publishing their work. It's just dumped somewhere, or it's just pushed under one cupboard in the library. So I'm here to just inspire you and also to enlighten you how to get your work published, how to get your work out there for other scientists, for other researchers, for policymakers to be able to see your work. Something about publishing, before I go into full discussion, is that you can think probably when you publish your work, I publish my work in a good platform. I mean, you have to also publish your work in platforms where other scientists will read your work, not predatory journals, not journals that are just there to just collect your money and publish your work without good peer review or quality oversight. If you publish your work in good journals, policymakers, advocates, organizations, they're always looking for evidence. So I've had a whole number of people reach out to me about my work, to talk to them more, to give them more insight. So, and that's why you have to publish that work. You have to push that work out there so that people can make use of them to advance knowledge. So even if you think your work maybe is not so groundbreaking, knowledge science is incremental. That thing that you think maybe is not so big, we don't when it comes to science, we are not talking about when something is big. We are talking about the impact and the relevance of that research question. Push that work out there. Let the world see it. Let the world see your ideas, your thoughts, and you'll be able to use those concepts to build knowledge, to advance knowledge in your field. So to go back to our discussion today, how to publish your research. I think I'm capable to do this, to give this talk, because I've published a whole number of papers in, quality top journals in global public health, in epidemiology, in my field. So you'll be able to learn tips in general that will definitely be helpful to you to navigate your own publication journey.
I just brought in before you leave. This is very important. I cannot tell you guys how important. If somebody had told me 6 years ago or before I graduated from pharmacy school that I'll be writing this week, I started writing an application for my EB1 visa, which is like an extraordinary visa. And one of the criteria they ask is, what is your scientific evidence? What's your evidence of your research? Listen, is saying, take it very seriously. Listen to him, like, have your notepad, because I told you guys I had to write to my property supervisor 6 years later to say, please, ma, can you write me a letter? Luckily for me, she helped me to publish my research journal. So we want to learn from you. I am still also want to learn from you, because I'm still also very interested in still publishing research. I can think about something, a question that I want to answer, and I can do the research and publish for myself. So thank you. I just wanted to emphasize that you guys listen to everything he's saying in this session. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. So getting your work published. So today is about publication, though this discussion is not about how to do research, it's about how to get your work published. And so I'll be covering the journal publishing process, how to write a paper briefly, because not all papers are actually publishable. You can think probably maybe you've done something. So whenever you want to think about publishing your work, one thing that is important is that you need to think about the research process itself, because If your work is not well done, is done shabbily, is likely many journalists are likely going to bounce your paper. So you have to try as much as possible to put in the work to do good research. That's why I tell undergraduates, please make sure that you put your all your energy to make sure that you actually do meaningful research. Do meaningful research, ask good research questions. From your fourth year or your fifth year or sixth year in university, start thinking about research question that you think is relevant to your career or what you want to do in next phase of your career, which will be relevant to you to make impact in your field as well. So try as much as possible to do good work. If you are starting your undergraduate thesis very soon, have some level of discussion with your professor or your supervisor that, sir, ma, I want to publish my work and I'm happy to put in the work. So do research that is actually relevant, that is contributing something meaningful to knowledge. So I also talk about the submission process and how you can navigate peer review. What makes science to be quality and why we actually trust science so much is the peer review aspect of it. Because when you do research, you can see your research is the best in the world. But if you submit your paper to a journal, it's going to be sent for peer review. Other experts in your field are going to read your work, give you some level of interesting criticism or feedback on how you can improve your work. And so in some cases, it might be rejected. But that's part of the our academic journey. But of course, I will explain more about how to deal with this thing and how to have high success rate. So also 10 rules for success when it comes to publishing. I will also discuss that. So why should you publish? Basically, I always remember that the reason why we publish is not because of anything, it's because we want to add to knowledge. If you are publishing for other reasons, then I don't know for that person. For me, the reason why I really enjoy getting my work out there or doing research as a whole is because I'm always passionate about generating new evidence. What do we know about this particular topic? How can we advance this particular topic more? What do we know? What are the things that we don't know? What are the gaps in our knowledge? I'm always curious, especially in my field. What can we do? So, as early career researchers, think about what you want to do. Think about what is going to drive impact. Think about something unique. And in this era that we are in, it is an opportunity for us to think across field. Don't just always think that, oh, I'm a pharmacist, then my research should just focus on pharmacy alone. You have to think about, okay, climate change now. We have other interesting things that is happening around us. How can you think across different areas? So this is an opportunity for us to rethink and to try as much as possible to bring knowledge together from different fields. How can you integrate AI into pharmacy? How can you integrate AI into malaria control? So start thinking about different ways, different angles. Climate change, how does it impact malaria control? How does it impact antimicrobial resistance? So don't just think alone like in silo, and don't just think within your field. As a young researcher, you have the opportunity to explore, to rethink. Because one time someone mentioned to me that it seems that we've done all the research in the world. Because it might actually appear like that. Because if you have an idea about something that you want to do and you just search online, someone has published this thing. Maybe I should not do this thing again. But if you read that paper, there's always going to be a section for limitation. Or there's going to be scope of their work. Maybe that work is just done. Maybe they did that work in Ghana. Of course, you can do it in Nigeria and compare the results. So knowledge, that's why we call it research. We are always searching. And search. We are always searching. So it's never ending. We can never have any saturation because we always and constantly have new problems, new challenges, new things, new insights. So now we have a whole lot of research, people doing research on how to connect AI to business, connect AI to different things. People are doing all sorts of research in that area because we are in the area where we need to do that. We have climate change, we have other public health emergencies that people are trying to link together because we are always looking for ways to advance things, to improve things, and to change our practices. And that's why the research is important. To add to knowledge is very, very important. To advance your career as well. Of course, if you are well known and if you've done a whole lot of work in your field, people will reach out to you. I've seen people reach out to me for collaboration, for different projects, for different things, media appearances, to talk about different things that I've been working on. So, but those things will actually come when you have feasibility in your field, when you have been doing work in your field. So it's not just about you contributing to knowledge alone. At the end of the day, you are still going to see career benefits of you being a researcher. But primarily, what should be at the end goal of any young researcher or any researcher is to contribute that things to knowledge, to contribute that insight to knowledge. You are going to advance your career. Of course, it's beautiful to see your name in print. If you've published a paper before, you see just seeing your name alone actually has some level of authority that this is the work that I've done. Like, I'm the expert on this particular topic. I've done this particular research, and these are my contributions to knowledge. How beautiful can that be as well? So, of course, does the work have enough stops to existing knowledge? You have to also think about that. So that's why research actually starts. The research that is publishable starts from the research phase, like I said earlier. So you have to try to do good work, think about what you want to do, think about what has been done, and how you can advance that field better. If that study has been done somewhere, is there any reason for you to replicate it in your country? Who knows? But you have to have a solid reason why you are doing a particular research. What impact, what contribution is it going to make? Is it that there's a particular problem in your community that you're looking forward to, you want to solve that problem, and you need more evidence? So there's always going to be reasons why you want to do that research, why you want to contribute that thing to knowledge. Is it going to make impact? Is it relevant? Of course. Why do you want to do research that is not important, that is not contributing anything meaningful to knowledge? So before you decide to publish, please think about all these things. Before you start doing your research as well, all these things needs to you need to put them into consideration, because real publishable work starts from the research phase. So where do you publish, and how do you decide where to publish? We have different platforms to publish. People publish some of their work, not research, maybe in newspaper. Some publish their work, maybe book chapters. But as scientists, as researcher, where we want to see your work is journal, because journals is where scientists actually want to communicate their findings. If you publish something, for instance, in maybe newspaper in your country, it doesn't have any high scientific weight. So even if it's just your opinion, just publish it there, that's fine. But scientists, where we want to get our work published, or our own area where we want to get our work published, is journals. And we have so many journals. So, but one thing that I will talk to you about, I didn't add it to this slide, is that we have something called predatory journals. Predatory journals, when you start publishing, you will receive a whole lot of emails from all these different publishers asking you, oh, you are the best researcher in your world, bring your paper, let's publish it for you. This kind of journal, they are fake in the sense that they don't do peer review. You know, I mentioned something about peer review. Peer review is what makes your work really quality. Though many people, sometimes they hate that part, because you have to wait for reviewers to read your work, to give you feedback. But it's actually very important, because you are not your best critic. You can think, oh, I've done this work. It's okay. If you send the work to me, I can give you some insight that maybe you've not thought of. Maybe you make mistake in your tables, or in your graphs, in the plotting. So you're not your best critic. That's why the best journals have best peer review process. But all these fake journals, they don't have it. They don't have one. So this session is not to cover predatory journals, but know that there's something called predatory journals. They are fake journals, and you should not take your paper there. You can Google it later to read more about predatory journals. But how do you know about good journals where you can take your work to? Look for experts in your field. I tell people, if you tell me that you are interested in a particular field, and you're not making constant effort to know top researchers or experts in your field, to read their work and see where they publish their work and how they even think about ideas to publish on, then you are not ready. As a young researcher, I have at least 10 people. And in this era, we have Google Scholar, we have ResearchGate, we have LinkedIn, where people share their work. Go to conferences, go to meetings, meet people that are working in your area of interest, so that you can see how they think, where they also publish their work. Because these people are experts. You are still a career researcher, right? They are experts, and they know they know good journals and that's where they publish their work. Because that's why they are experts in your field. They publish their work in good journals. You can also know about good journals by knowing publishers. We have different publishers, and we have reputable ones. We have Springer, we have Acivia, we have Taylor and Francis. We have different publishers. Don't call Elsevier journals, because some people say Elsevier. I publish my work in Elsevier. Elsevier is not the name of the journal. Elsevier is just a publisher with different journals under. So if you check Wiley, if you check Taylor and Francis, all these top, you can Google it now. Let me just give you a quick hack. Google top 10 reputable publishers in the world. Once you add the name, for instance, Wiley, you can Google list of journals published by Wiley, because Wiley is reputable. The journals under Wiley, they are likely to be reputable as well. Than for you to go and publish your journal in maybe journals that you don't know anything about. Maybe they are just predatory, they just want to collect your money, or they just want to publish your work without peer review. So you have to be careful. So I don't want to waste so much time on predatory journals, but note that we have something called predatory journals. But generally, overall, we have so many journals published by all these top publishers as well. And we have different ways you can actually get to know them. So that's one strategy. Have top researchers in your feed. Follow their work. Follow where they publish their research. Of course, know about the publishers as well. Check each publisher, different journals under each publisher. They are reputable because people trust them, and they have been publishing research for like many years. And also, there are some institutions as well that have journal. For instance, University of Edinburgh, they have Journal of Global Health. We have some institutions around the world. We have FIP. We have different organizations. They have their own journal as well. You can be sure that if a journal is hosted by a reputable institution, then that journal is definitely okay. So you can't expect a journal owned by a reputable university, journal owned by, for instance, University of Oxford. If they have a journal, you can be sure that that journal is of good quality. Journal by Cambridge Press, you can be sure it is like of good quality. So these are just some ways you can know about different journals to publish your work. So another important thing is, when you've seen a journal, let's say you've identified it, and if you don't know about journals to publish your work, of course, you've done your research, you can ask people. You can ask questions. You can go to ChatGPT, upload your paper there, and ask, okay, where can I publish this paper? We have a lot of advantages in this generation, that if you tell me you don't know something and you've not made any effort to actually try to get more information about it, then maybe you are not ready. You have different tools to ask questions. You have people to reach out to. Like many years ago, you will see like all these professors, they will say they will go to, for them to know about journals or for them to search for information, they have to inhale dust because they have to go to the library. But now, just simple Google search, you can have information about things. So leverage that to also advance your career, to build your capacities in things that you're interested in. So whenever you find a journal, you've seen a journal where you want to publish your work, let's say Journal of Global Health, the very first thing that you have to check is the guide for authors. Some journals will call it instructions, some will call it guide, some will call it guide for authors, some will call it different names. But at the end of the day, that part is just about how do they want you to structure your work, and also the scope of that journal. For instance, Journal of Global Health, they have their own, you might think that your work falls under that, but it might not be within their own scope. So always check the guide for authors. That's why some people have rejection when they submit their papers to journals. Your paper is likely to be rejected if it doesn't fall within the scope of that journal. If a journal their focus is cancer biology, and you submit your paper, let's say your paper on let's say a core epidemiology that doesn't really touch on cancer biology like that, then your work is likely to be rejected. Not because your work is not good, it doesn't fit within the scope of the journal. So always check the coverage of that journal, where they publish it, their own domain. That's why sometimes if I submit my paper to a journal, I try to download papers from that journal as well to read, because all these things are available and are accessible to you to read. So you check. And also, is it peer reviewed? Like I said, don't take your work to predatory journals. Take your work to good quality journals. If you are not sure whether a journal is predatory, ask people, ask experts in your field if you trust that journal. Because you don't want to submit your work to predatory journal, because one reason is that you will be the only one ended up reading your work. What I mean by that is that no expert in your field will actually cite that kind of paper or use them to advance discussion. So you always want to take your work to journals that maybe if they're not high, top up there, but at least they are peer reviewed and they have some level of legitimacy in your field, and people, they are legit and people trust them as well, that this journal is actually hosted by reputable institution. the editorial board is okay. So just know that if you are not so sure, ask people, ask questions, and people will be able to give you insight on where you can take your work to. Most appropriate readership. Sometimes you want to publish your work in journals with very good readership in your own area of interest. For instance, sometimes you want to take your work to journals, African-based journals, if you think that your work is going to have more reach or more impact in that area. So prestige as well, you have to consider how prestigious that journal is. Length of time from submission to publication. Sometimes you also have to check that because some journals can take forever. So you have to be sure you check the length of time from submission to publication as well. But this is not always fixed. You know why? Because it's dependent on the reviewer. So publishing is actually a lengthy process because once your work is deemed fit to be suitable for that journal, it's going to be sent for peer review. So peer review is not paid. So reviewers are not paid. So they take their time. Sometimes some journals, they will find it difficult. So that's how you see submission date 2024, acceptance date 2025 or 2026. Because sometimes it might be difficult for journals to find reviewers for your paper. On average, most articles actually get published within 3 to, let's say, 6 months. Your paper is going to be published online. So, but check if you think maybe this journal they delay papers a lot. But most journals, they try as possible to speed up the process. So, highest impact, I will talk about impact factors later. So, what do you mean by impact factor? If we talk about impact factor of journal, so it's just a metric that just tries to provide measure of how frequently papers published in a journal are cited in other papers. And we have 2 years, we have 5-year impact factor. But I want to call your attention to something. Please don't just look at impact factors when it comes to, that's the only thing you're looking out for when you're trying to select journals. No, sometimes you can just look at, okay, this journal is well known in my field. It might be a new journal, it might be a very niche area, in the sense that they have limited scientists, for instance, some areas maybe in sociology or social sciences, and there are limited research ongoing in that particular area. That kind of journal might receive little citation, but that doesn't mean that the journal is not good. But impact factor sometimes can signal that something is prestigious. For instance, if you have a journal that has, let's say, something impact factor of like 6 or maybe like 20, or Lancet, one of the top medical journals, have like maybe over 100 impact factor. What that means when you hear the word impact factor is that it's calculated as average number of papers that's published in that particular journal. If you look at let's say in the last maybe 2 years or 5 years, depending on the impact factor that you're talking about, let's say that paper has been published, paper published in that journal, let's say like 20 papers has been published in that journal. So how much citation has that paper and other papers in that journal within that particular time frame has received? So you use that to calculate the impact factor and you get numbers. So, but please don't just rely on that when you are trying to select journals. So you want to focus on the quality of the peer review, whether it is hosted by a reputable institution, whether it is published by a reputable publisher, and whether it is indexed in PubMed. You know, when you are searching for something, sometimes you see what they call PubMed, you see Scopus, you see Web of Science. These are platforms that captures your paper and they index it in their own platform. And they are very, like, the rules there is actually very, very strong, in the sense that before you can actually have your paper indexed you have a journal indexed in Web of Science, in PubMed, in Scopus. They actually gone through maybe stringent regulation, stringent quality check before they are indexed. So indexing means, let me break it down. Indexing means that if you publish your work, let's say in a journal, that your work can also be captured by a reputable platform or an indexing platform, where that same work that you've published is stored there, is archived there. But before any journal can be allowed to have their work archived or indexed in that particular database, that journal, they've gone through stringent rules, stringent peer review to be sure that this journal is of good quality. And we have Web of Science. If a paper is indexed in Web of Science, let's say your work is published in Journal of Global Health. Journal of Global Health is indexed in Web of Science. What that means is that if you publish your work in Journal of Global Health, In the next few days, you also find your work in Web of Science, indexed there, kept there, archived there. But you allow Journal of Global Health to share their paper with them to index their work in Web of Science because they've actually passed the quality check. I hope you're able to get what I'm trying to say. So that's what we mean by indexing. So platforms that are actually really, really reputable, we have Medlin, we have Web of Science, we have Scopus, and we have PubMed. So if your work is indexed there, you can be sure that if a journal is indexed in those platforms, you can be sure that this journal is actually okay. It's very important for you to also know that. Please don't just consider impact factor alone, because as you can see, this calculation actually takes time. For some journals or some feed, it might take them time to have their work cited. But that doesn't mean that paper published in that journal, they are not good. So tone it down. But if you have the opportunity to get your work published in high impact factor journals, then go for it. So what editor looks for in manuscript? Let's say you've done your research and you want to get that work published. What are the things that the reviewers or the editor, what are the things that they actually check? They check for quality, good science. Is it well written? The presentation, is it okay? So they look at that. And they also check if that work is within the scope of the journal. Please don't always forget that. Always read the about the journal section. Is always, if you check any journal right now, because I don't want you to memorize anything, just understand the basic principle behind this thing. When you open a journal, check the about or maybe introduction or our scope or our guide or something. Just check it. They are going to explain the kind of papers that they want to publish. You also have the opportunity to explore other papers that have been published in that journal. You can look at them. Okay, they published paper. Oh, it's similar to my own paper. Oh, nice. Let me take my work there. Another thing I didn't mention the other time, another quick hack to know where to publish your work is for you to check the reference of your paper. Let's say you've done your thesis. Go and look at the reference. Look at important papers that actually add good insight to your work. Look at the reference list. You can have, okay, this journal, I cited this journal in my work and it's very good for my discussion. Let me take my paper there. That's also another way for you to know about journals where you can take your work to, just to explain that. So always check the guide for authors, check the instruction, format your paper. Because different journals, they have different styles and they have different ways they want you to format your work. So it is important for you to actually check what is the format that this particular journal, what do they want from me? And you have to format it in that way. The introduction, don't memorize anything. Check the guide. It's not like it is fixed. Some journal we say we call results findings. Instead of calling it result, we call it findings. So you have to make sure that you format it in line with that particular journal that you want to take your work. It is very, very important. Because if you don't do this, the editor will look at your paper. Oh, this person didn't pay close attention to our guide. Some can ask you to revise and send your paper back to you too. So please, can you please revise your work and get back to us once you are done? They've not sent your work for peer review. It's just initial stage. For some editors don't have time, they will just reject your work. So it is very, very important that you pay close attention to that. Of course, communicate why your work is important. Make sure that it is within the scope of the journal. Demonstrate broad interest to readership. Will it be cited? So the editor also look at that. And will it be cited basically means that, is this work really relevant? That's the meaning. Is this work going to be cited? What they are trying to tell you is that, is this work citable? Is it relevant? Because if something is relevant, I have paper that I published just early this year, and some of them have been cited many times already. I have paper published like maybe 2 years ago, in 100 citations already. People are citing it in their work. So journal also look at those kind of things. You know why? You should know the reason. Because they also want to boost their impact factors. So they also want to make sure that their impact factor is going up as well. But they don't just look at that alone. But they want to just make sure that your work is actually something that people will find interesting. The readers of their journal will be able to use their work. Remember, impact factor is highly dependent on the number of people citing papers in that journal over a particular period of time, whether 2 years or 5 years, depending on the impact factor that you are looking at. It is important. Is it well written? Please check. Also, they look at your enthusiasm. I'll talk about how they check that. And it's through cover letter. There's also cover letter that you sometimes submit with your work for people, for the editor to see that, oh, this is why my work is important and this is why it needs to be published in this journal. So they also check that as well. So writing your paper, don't forget strong introduction. When the editor looks at your paper, editors check your paper first before they send it for peer review. I have a chart to actually explain that better. So strong introduction. When they read your introduction, are they able to get it? Why is this work important? Why should they publish it? Why should they give your paper a space in their own website or their own journal for you to publish your work? Why is it important? They have to be able to get that from your introduction. Clear? Is it logical? Is the method complete? You know what makes science interesting? What makes science interesting is the fact that, can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good. What makes science to be really interesting is the aspect of replication. And what I mean by replication is if you've done the research, someone somewhere should be able to replicate your method and get the same answer if they follow what you've done. Let's say they give you have a data set and you've explained everything. Okay, we exclude this also number of people, we do this, we do that, we arrive at this particular sample size, this is my exposure, this is my outcome, this is the definition. You have to make it clear. And you have to ask yourself that question: is this clear enough for my work to be replicated whenever you are writing method session? It is very, very important, because that's what makes science beautiful. That, okay, you've done your research. When you're explaining in the method, that's why you call it method. How was this research conducted? How did you do this particular research? Explain to us. And that's what method is. It has to be complete. So you have to try as much as possible to, though no one is really perfect when it comes to that, because you might think that you've explained, but try as much as possible to make it really clear what you've done. Don't hide anything that, okay, make it clear, or don't assume that people will know. So the best method is method that is easily replicable. Can someone just pick your paper, download that data set that you've used, replicate that study, and get the same answer as you? That's the whole idea of method. Always remember that. That's what we mean by method. Results section as well. You have to be clear. What are your key findings? Be concise. Use table, use figure, use text. Make it clear. Your discussion, try as much as possible to make it relevant, make it clear. Explain your findings to us. And that's what discussion is all about. So we are focusing more on how to publish. So your thesis, your dissertation, please do good work, get it published. And that's why we are having this kind of discussion. So as undergraduate, as students, masters, undergraduate students, don't just do that research because you just want to graduate. Do that research. For me, I published 3 papers for my undergraduate thesis. 3. Just my undergraduate thesis alone, not all the side projects. 3 articles published in international peer-reviewed journals. And most of my paper, about 99.9% of my paper are published in reputable, international, well-recognized journals. So, and you also can also do that. And my thesis, for me, why would I do that work? Do anything and not make effort to publish. I know it can be tough in our own climate because some professors can be really stressful. Some professors from lecturer can be really stressful. But from the beginning, try to engage with them that you want to do good work and you really want to publish that work and you are willing to do good work. And hopefully they're going to support you to get the best out of your thesis. Please publish that thesis. Don't just put it on in your library. Don't just submit it and you just throw it away. It's not adding anything to knowledge. Don't do that. So remember, your thesis is just a whole lot of, up to like maybe 70,000 for PhD. Now, presently, I'm writing close to 200 pages. For masters, maybe like 70 or 80 pages. For undergraduate thesis, going to like 100 pages as well. Depending on the number. You cannot just submit that to journal and you want to publish it. No. You have to think about how you want to split that work, how you want to shorten it to fit the journal's guide. You cannot just submit 100,000 words dissertation to journal like that. No. You have to follow their guide. You have to streamline it. Some journals will say they want 4,000 words. Some will say they want 3,000. Some will say they want 2,000, depending on the journal. Just check the journal. But most journals on average, they will say they want 5,000, 3,000, 4,000. So try as much as possible to streamline and make sure that you sometimes my dissertation is just one. My dissertation is just one. Is on one topic. But I was able to split it to 3 different papers because they answer different research questions. Sometimes you can split your research for publication based on the objective. Maybe you have different objectives that are really, really different. You can split that into 3 different publications. So That's something that you still have to put you have to always have to remember. And you have to refine, review to cut these things down. You cannot put the whole introduction into a journal article. You have to make sure you streamline things into 2 to 3 papers and get that submitted to maybe different journals. So another thing I didn't talk about, I didn't add to this slide, but you have to note is that there's something called also ethics when it comes to publishing. Please, you cannot publish the same papers in 2 journals. This is what I mean. Let's say you've done a research on knowledge, attitude, and perception of pharmacy students or medical students regarding cancer. You've done that work, you've submitted to journal A. You cannot publish that same work in journal B or journal C and start. No. The ethics say that you have to submit your work to 1 journal at a time. And that's a whole lot of headache as well. If the journal delays, you have to wait for them to get back to you. Or you withdraw your paper and submit it to another journal. You cannot submit 1 paper to 2 journals at the same time. Or 4 journals or 5 journals. You cannot do that. Your journal should be under consideration in 1 journal at a time. And you cannot publish 1 paper. Maybe a paper has been published in Journal of Epidemiology or Journal of Cancer Report or Journal of maybe anything. That same paper that published that your work, you now submit that same paper to another journal. No, don't do that. It's going to lead to what we call retraction. And scientists don't want retraction in their profile. And trust me, people will find, people are always reading articles. If you think your work is just there, that's why I always tell young researchers, always remember that your work, your research is going to be online forever. And most of you, maybe you've seen some papers published in less than 1980 something. I've seen that a lot on PubMed. Journals published like maybe 1990 or 1999. They are still available online. They are still available for people to use. So remember, your name is going to be there forever. Even if you are long gone, your work is still there. And people can see that, oh, this guy, you publish here, you publish another journal. We see it. People will find out. So there's no doubt. Don't worry about that. People will find out. Because people are reading your work. Your work is online. Anyone can just search for anything and just say, oh, these people, they just report to the journal. Even if the journal didn't find, they didn't find out. But don't worry, everything is connected now. People will find out. Please don't do that. And remember that your work is going to be available online forever. It's even forever now. Because we have, like on the internet now, we have space where we can actually store anything forever. Imagine, let's say, use YouTube as an example. We have different videos on YouTube and there's still a lot more videos. People still post videos like up to like, I'm sure maybe like 10,000 videos per day. So you can be sure that we have enough space in this era to store anything to online for them to be available forever. Even if a journal ceases publication, if a journal stops publishing, they stop publishing, your work is still going to be online in that journal or in the indexing platform. If a journal is indexed, like I said earlier, maybe Web of Science, it will still be there because Web of Science is not going. Even if the journal they stop publishing, there's still a way all these reputable publishers. For instance, if you go to a Severe journal, or you check their journals, you see that some journals, they stop publishing. And you still see papers from that journal, they're still available online to date. Because that's the work. That's one of the things that you pay for or your institution pay for, or if they give you waiver, those are the things that they actually cover. Because your work is still going to be there forever. So do good work, do quality science, and be trustworthy because scientists, people trust, you are meant to be trusted because what you are doing is something that can actually influence policy, that can change practice, that can lead to even cause problem. So you don't want to joke with our scientists to do things to cut corner. For me, most of my papers that has to do with analysis, I have them stored. They are on my cloud. I have the data set used. I have the analysis code. Everything is there. If you ask me, give us the analysis, I will gladly just open it and show you. This is how I arrive at this. And I can explain and walk you through. So don't just, even they say after like 5 years or 10 years, you can destroy the data, but still keep it. If you can keep it somewhere in your cloud or in your one storage platform, still keep those things there so that they can be available and you can easily retrieve them. So don't joke with your integrity as a researcher. So this is just like a summary of the process. When you submit your work to a journal, submission. So at that phase of submission, it can be rejected, right? Journal can reject your work that, oh, this guy didn't follow our guideline, or his work is out of our scope, or your work is not competitive enough. As a researcher, we enjoy or not enjoy, we face quite a lot of rejection. Even professors, they still have their work rejected in journals. So it's just a normal thing. It's just a normal. So because we have different journals as well, when they give you feedback, look at their comments and say, oh, okay, maybe I've made a mistake. Oh, we need to redo this experiment. Just be objective in your thinking. Don't think it is personal that they're just trying to attack you. See that work, maybe they've seen something there, or they think that maybe your work is not of good fit. Without any peer review, your work can go through rejection. This is the first phase. So if editor now sees that, oh, these researchers, they've done a good work, we like the work, we want to get it published, they will not just throw your work from submission to publication. No, they will send it for peer review. Other experts are going to read your work, and that's the second stage here. They're going to read your work. I mean, strong criticism from good journals. You have to face that a lot. But I enjoy the process because I noticed over time that it's just a way to actually improve my work. Peer review is a way to improve my work. I just see it that way. So, but when I receive the comment, let's say, just sleep over it. Because when you read it, you go, oh, what's this? I have to redo this. I have to work on this again. But at the end of the day, I notice it's, in a way, it's going to bring beauty. Because these people are also experts. They're also researchers in your area of interest. They're also researchers. They're experts in your work. And they've seen something. That's why they are commenting on that. And you don't always have to accept everything. You can also push back. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm back. So, what do I say? Okay, remember that they are not there for you to fail. They're just there for you they want to pass their comments. So, but it's not every time that you also accept their comments. Sometimes you can decide to push back. Like, oh, see, I'm not agreeing to this particular comment. I don't want to agree to it, and this is the reason. You have to justify why. Or you have to correct the reviewer as well if you think maybe they don't get what you're trying to say. Or you have to just make sure that you take it as an objective process. Not something that someone is trying to attack you. Be objective enough when it comes to peer review. Something I have to sleep over for 1 week or start looking at the comment. Oh, where did I start from? Discuss with other co-authors. How can we navigate this thing? And we work on it and we get it, the paper published, and we respond to the reviewer. So after you've responded to the reviewer, their comment, and you've revised your work, the journal will provide the opportunity for you to resubmit. Do the revision. Your work can be rejected. They can say, okay, maybe you didn't respond, you didn't really give good response, or you didn't give good justification, or they've seen another error or major thing in your paper and they just want to reject it. So don't think that after you've passed peer review, oh, the editor finds it interesting, they will just accept it. No. Even after revision, it can be rejected, but the chances are actually very low. If your work has been set for peer review and you have comments, and the journal gives you that opportunity to revise, then they see potential in your work. Some people, after peer review, they will just reject their work. It won't move past this process, this step. After peer review, rejection. But some based on the comment and based on the insight that the review actually passed to the editor, they will not decide whether they want to actually allow you to revise. So when you revise your work, there's also another thing. They can ask for more revision. Don't be scared. This is actually very enjoyable. Like, I enjoy doing my work, doing my research, getting my work published, going through all this process. Sometimes I've had some of my papers, they have been, we have revisions like maybe 4 times. That's the highest I think I've had so far, 4 times. So you go through the process again and again, more comments until publication. When you revise, they look at your comments, criticize it again, they look at. But sometimes after that revision, it's just acceptance. A revision can be major or minor. So if you have major revision, then you have to make sure that you pay close attention to the comment and you revise it appropriately. If it is minor comment, also address the minor comment. And if it is minor revision, after minor revision, most times it's just acceptance. So because after the revision, after you revise your work and you send it back to the journal, the editor sometimes can make decision that, okay, let's just accept the paper. They've addressed all the comments. But sometimes some journals, they will send it back again. They will send it like that paper that you've revised will be sent back for another revision. So after that revision, during that revision stage, they can still reject. More revision, they can still reject that paper. So, but what we always want is that acceptance. But it depends on the journal, it depends on the peer reviewer, it depends on the editor as well. So that golden stage and what you really want is that acceptance, that you'll be happy that your work is going to be published. Your work is going to be out there for other scientists, for other researchers, for the public to see, which is actually quite interesting. And we have some level of relief when we get to this particular stage of accept. So, like I said, I've talked about all this a lot. Make sure that you revise your work appropriately. So there are always opportunities for rejection. You've seen different stages of possible rejection, but of course, you can scale through the process. They also want you to succeed, but if your work is badly done, how is it going to scale through this process? This process. How is it going to scale through? So you have to think about how you want to make your work stand out. Send your work to good journals. Send your work with journal where you're going to receive feedback as well. Because I've learned through the process that even feedback is very, very useful. I've seen my paper turn around because of comments from reviewers. So when I started publishing, I always see that some maybe a headache or something. But right now, I enjoy the process and I even look forward to comments on my work from peer reviewers. Also, remember your work is competing against others. So it's not like it is hard. Don't see this process to be difficult. It's not difficult at all. But it's just a normal process to safeguard science, to make sure that good paper are actually published. Imagine someone make a claim that, oh, okay, you see, what's this claim that is circulating now? That paracetamol paracetamol is causing autism, all those kind of stupid things. Imagine a paper gets to peer review and that paper gets published with that bold claim. And the work is not properly done. It's just some shabby research or some ideas or opinion that doesn't add anything to knowledge. Imagine that. And that gets published. Imagine what is going to happen. Just see it as a way to safeguard science, to make sure that the best work is what we have published. Please don't see it as something really. It's not tough. So in fact, this process that I've mentioned to you can take 2 months, can take 1 month sometimes, depending on how fast the peer reviewer and how fast you also give feedback. Because they will give you, once they send the comment to you, they will give you maybe 1 month, 2 months. For instance, for me, I don't delay. But once I have free time, I just respond to the comments within sometimes 2 days. Sometimes if the comment is really rich, like it's really, really challenging, I have to make sure that I sleep over it, maybe for like 1 week, and go back to the comment and address the comments. So there's no rush, but the more you also like how proactive you are in responding to those comments, that's how fast the process is going to be. Imagine they give you the journal actually they give you 4 months or 5 months to it's not up to that. I mean, most likely they give you 2 months. Imagine you use that 2 months to wait. You say, okay, I will submit on the last day of the 2 months. Then that means you are delaying the publication of your work. I hope you're able to connect the dot and the logic. So, but if you respond really fast, the journal, oh, this is good. You've responded. They will send it back for review, or they will review your comment and maybe accept or reject, depending on what they think about your responses and how you've identified and how you've addressed those comments. So also, before you submit again, when you're asked to revise, you can send it to other people to read, get perspective from different people. Remember, it's not about quantity. We want to make sure that we contribute something meaningful to knowledge, something impactful, something that people will find useful. If you do something on knowledge of pharmacy student, is it useful? Is it interesting? Are you able to write it well on how and the possible implications to maybe the care that they're going to deliver, or when they become healthcare providers, how are they going to be able to practice really well? What implication, what impact is that going to make? So always think about the importance of your work and also give it to people to give you insight, to give you comment, and additional review. Also follow the instruction, write good cover letter to journal, why your work is important. Most journal, they have when you are submitting your work to the journal, they have a session where they will ask you to write cover letter. So write a very good one. Submit with the content of all the authors. If you have many authors on your paper, you don't just add people's name to papers. Make sure they've contributed to the work and they've read the work and they approve it for submission. So make sure that that's also very, very important. It's part of the ethics. And I think it's normal thing. Normal things is just equals to ethics. It's most of the time. But you can't just wake up and just add one professor somewhere to your paper. And the professor, they've not read your work, they've not seen your work. You just think maybe they are good or they are top researcher in your feed. So don't do that. I've seen people add my name to papers. Like, of course, I know this paper is going to be rejected. And I'm just saying, why do you add my name? You have to add my name to this paper. I've not read the paper. we just talk, you just ask me a question, but I didn't give my consent. Please don't do that. Seek consent from the other researcher, from the other author, and make sure they approve the final submission. So don't do that. It's wrong. So after you submit your paper for peer review process, I've talked about all these things. So sometimes you have 2 or 3 peer reviewers, not just one. No, sometimes you have 4 if you are lucky. You have 5. Maybe I've seen the paper that I've submitted the paper to the journal, and I have comments from 6 reviewers. So after there's 6 comments, not 6 comments, I mean 6 reviewers, but they have different comments. Some have like 5, some have 6, some have 4. Imagine. But it's part of, I see it now as more part of the quality assurance to make sure that any knowledge that we are producing and that we are publishing is of good quality and it is foolproof to editors and reviewers' comments. So, yeah, talk about all these things. Talk about these. I think I have another comment. Yeah, what is important? So, how do you respond? Sorry, I have to overall. I'm going to send a slide so you can go. It's really, you can easily understand what. Now, this is a very good example. This is an example of comments from a reviewer to the author. So if you want to actually respond, make sure that don't just throw away their comments and just say, oh, okay, what you're saying is wrong. You don't have to comment on a paper like that. You don't have to do. Some reviewer they can be strict, but you tone it down. Take look at it from the objective. Some can even say this work is not contributing any meaningful thing to knowledge, but the reviewer, the authors can try to revise this way to improve it. So all those kind of harsh comments as well. So some reviewers are like that, but don't look at it from that lens. Just look at it objectively. That oh, okay, maybe they are saying the right thing. Let me try to improve my work so that it will be publishable. So this is an example of a good response. They acknowledge and they also push back where they want to push back, and state what they've done and how they revise the paper. So it is very, very important. So this one is not so good. The presentation is not particularly concise. The reviewer is saying that it's not clear, not concise. So see the response from the author. As it is clearly apparent that you have not properly read or understood the paper. Comments on clarity are irrelevant. Don't do that. That means that you want your work to be rejected. That's just it. The editor will just reject your work. Or the reviewer themselves, this one is not serious. They reject your work. So even if you think the comment is really harsh, don't reply, don't write a response this way. Also be professional about how you reply. You can always push back that, oh, okay, probably the reviewer, this is the point you are trying to make. And the reason why you did this particular way is this. You are the author. Like you own that paper, you own the idea. And you've thought about what you've done. Like what you did when you're writing up the paper, when you're doing your research. So you have the opportunity to also push back, but lightly. And make sure that you push back in a way that is constructive. Even if the authors or even if the reviewer seems to be like, they say something that you don't probably particularly like, but don't worry, just be professional, be calm, and give clear, accurate response and explain where you've made the correction. Let's say another comment from a reviewer. 2 to 3 page report with many fixable but major criticism. They make different comments, right? But the author just mentioned that I've changed the MS. What did you change? What have you done? So you have to make sure that you're also specific in your comment, what you've done to remedy or to correct or any oversight or any suggestion, or if you want to push back with clarity and what you've done. Don't just give okay, I've addressed all the comments in this document. Thank you for all your comments. Then that's all. No, your paper is going to be rejected. You have to make sure that you address all the comments one after the other and what you've done to improve your work. Remember, don't see it as stress. It looks stressful, right? But don't see it like that. See it as a way to quality assured science and make sure that what we have out there is good. Imagine you make a claim that the medication is not working, and indeed medication actually works for that particular condition. You don't want to do that as well, right? So you want other people to read your work and give you good comments. Myself, I can also be a tough reviewer when I'm reviewing people's paper, but not that I'm tough. I'm being critical so that we can actually advance knowledge in a meaningful way, but not to be abusing the author. I don't abuse authors because myself, I'm also author, and at the same time, I'm also a reviewer sometimes for different journals. So, but I try to be objective with my comments. that, okay, this is why you have to improve this, and you have to make sure that you do this. So some reviewer will also pass comment that is not so clear, but if you need clarity, you can ask them, or you can do what you think is best. If you ask them question, they can push back again and say, this is what they're trying to say, and that will delay your work. So just address as much as possible and be objective when you're giving your response. So the major decision that is always possible, remember, accept, review, or reject. So I've explained all these things before, and let's go to 10 rules, and I'm going to open the floor for questions. As early career researchers, read many papers. The more you read papers, the more you see how scientists write. The more you see how people write their own papers. So I can't count the number of papers I've in my career that I've actually read. So, which is normal. As a researcher, you have to constantly read other people's work in your field, across your field, or what interests you, because you also learn from that. When you read people's work, when you read journal articles, when you read papers, you learn how to write, you learn how to construct your ideas, you learn how people publish or how people comment or how people argue in your feed. So reading papers is actually very good for you to solidify your knowledge, for you to improve your vocabulary in your feed. So reading papers is actually very, very good. And both the good and bad ones, right now, I can easily spot errors or possible mistakes in journal articles because I've been reading quite a lot of them. So I can easily spot, oh, you need to do this, you need to improve on this. And if you see a bad paper, you will know that, oh, this method is not properly written, because you have been reading quite a lot. You have been reading different papers from different top journal, top professors. So as early career researcher, like I said earlier, please know 5 to 6 top researchers in your field. It is quite important, because if you know them, you'll be able to, at the same time, you'll be able to see how they write, how they publish, where they publish their work, and you can actually learn from them. There are some researchers that I don't talk to. I've never talked to them. I've never engaged with them, but I follow their work closely. The day I have the opportunity to meet them, let's say in a conference, they'll be shocked that this guy, you know so much about my work. So I read this particular paper. I really enjoyed the paper. And it will show from an angle that I actually read the paper and I know what they're actually saying in the paper. This digital era, and you have the opportunity to read other people's work, even without talking to them. You can go online now and search my full name. You see my papers have been published on different topics, on different areas. And you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to engage with me. You can read my work and say, oh, okay, oh, this is interesting. Oh, they should have done this better. I'm going to improve on this in my own paper. That's how science works. It's open access. Anybody can read your work. Anybody can access your work. Anybody can critique your work. And that's the beauty. And science is changing. For instance, if your own paper, you're able to find association between two things, that doesn't mean that research B is going to find association. And that's how research is actually very interesting. And that's why we have a lot of conflict during COVID-19 pandemic. Though we have some distrust from maybe some governments or some stakeholders, that's fine. But science actually can be not wrong. Science, in a way, continues to advance. You cannot use the word wrong because the data is there, right? Some people, they've done the analysis, and this is what they found. So you can't say they are wrong. Science actually advances from time to time based on new knowledge, based on new insight. So that's why as a researcher, you have to be open-minded to see new insight, new perspective from time to time. Because your own study didn't find association doesn't mean that another study will not. So that's why you're always open-minded. But we also reach a particular point in time where findings in journal articles are solidified, have come together to give us a definite answer to question. That's why we can boldly say vaccine doesn't have any connection with autism, because research has been conducted over time to be able to show that no, this is actually the truth. We all know that tobacco smoking causes cancer. Over the years, a whole lot of research has been done to show this. So if you come to them and say, oh, smoking doesn't cause cancer, people just look at it out. What is this one saying? But if you can prove it to us, and people can see that, oh, this is another lens, which I doubt, because a whole lot of study has been done to actually show this. But you can come from another angle that, oh, okay, maybe smoking is not so harmful in certain population due to a particular gene. That makes sense. That advanced knowledge. You see how science works? Because many people find it really complicated. Oh, this vaccine, they tell us that it's going to work, it's going to prevent COVID, but we find out that probably it's going to probably limit or prevent you from dying even if you have COVID. So there are a lot of changes, but I understand as well. There are a lot of politics as well when it comes to science. But that's another aspect. But science or research is not politics. It should be based on truth at every point in time. So just be open-minded. The more objective you can be about your work, the better the work is. Yes, good editors and reviewers will be objective about your work. If you do not write well in English, please start learning, start reading people's work, start practicing how to improve your writing. It is going to actually help you a lot to improve how you communicate your work. When I started doing research, the way I write now is not the way I write then. I constantly improve my writing skills because, of course, I've read a lot. I've written different things, and all these things, they help you to actually improve your writing skills, and you get better. So don't worry about writing, just practice, continue to read other people's work, continue to practice by also writing. That can be a different class, how to improve your academic writing skills. Learn to live with rejection. So if your work is rejected by a journal, sometimes they will give you comments. Look at that comment, work on those comments, and package your work and submit it to another journal. We have many journals. But if you think that they are citing important, some comments are not so relevant like that. Maybe you think they are really, really strict in this journal. The comment they pass is not so good. It doesn't align with my work, and you feel somehow. Look at your work again, move it to another journal. We have different journals across different feeds. That journal, once your work is graded, that is not the end of life. Look at your work again, revise it, improve on it again, repackage it, and submit it to another journal. Understand what makes good science? Of course. And what makes good science writing? Clarity is important. Objectivity is important. Understand that knowledge is always evolving is important. Start writing the paper the day you have idea of what question to pursue. Of course, when you already have your paper out there, you have the idea, start your work, maybe if you need to get ethical approval, start the process that will lead up to publication. Become a reviewer. You can become a reviewer for journal as well. You can start critiquing. Once you've published like 2 to 3 papers or you publish 1 paper, you can start, of course, reviewing for journals. In fact, once you get in the system of journals, they will start sending you email from time to time. They are so and so. Can you please peer review this paper for us? But I would recommend that at least before you start your peer review journey, make sure you publish at least 1 to 2 papers. Because you cannot be a reviewer when you yourself will not publish anything, but try to publish. And some journals, when you get to their system, they will start sending you email from time to time based on that journal where you've published or based on the feed where you've published. Decide early on where you want to publish your work. For me, when I start writing, or even for my dissertation, I already know where I'm taking my work to. So it's always good to have that clarity. Even before I start my analysis, I've already decided, I'm taking my work to this particular journal. That doesn't it's not fixed, it can change. But just know that it's always good as well to decide where you want to take your work to. Quality. We can argue that quality and quantity is important if you have the capacity, but don't trade quality for quantity. Do very good work. And like I said, your work is going to be online, if you can use the word forever, because your work is going to be there. People can read it, people can cite it. So do a very good job. Make sure you cross-check, avoid grammatical errors, send it to other people to help you peer review. We can make mistakes when we write. Check your work, get other co-authors. You're still early in your career, work with other people, collaborate, learn and unlearn, relearn as much as you can. And that's what makes you grow. Learn, unlearn, relearn. When you learn something, that's not the end. There's always another way around it. Be open to relearn things and be open to unlearn as much as you can. So quality is important when you are dealing with anything scientific. You want to make sure that you've done your best to get the strongest piece of evidence as much as you can. Thank you very much. I will open the floor for questions. Are you able to get some insight on how you can get your work published and how the process actually look like roughly? Thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity to share my insight with you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow, please, can we just give a round of applause first of all before we start the questions? This has been, personally, I feel like this was a session I wish I also had when I was doing my undergrad research, because I feel like Yusuf was very, I don't know how you got to know about research. Maybe he will tell us that story. But how Yusuf did his is very, very inspiring, because I mean, back then we reached 500 level, and everybody thought we got to the board, we got to school, and they said, go and check your name where you're going to do your research. And we're thrown into the weeds. Nobody told us about even publishing our research. Nobody told us about how to even write your research very well. You know, it was just a learning process for us. But guys, I'm not kidding you. Like this week, like for the past 2 weeks, I've been writing my EB1 application for, you know, if you travel to the US, you have to, you know, get your visa and all. I'm like, I have a visa, but I want to switch to another one. And I cannot tell you how I feel like, why did I not do research publication back then? I luckily for me, I had my research was published in 2 journals, ISPOR and, you know, Malaysian Journal for Health Research. And that was because my supervisor saw the quality of my work, and she was like, okay, like he said, meaningful research. I think I told you guys the story of how my first research was like, I started it on pain. And then after like 6 weeks working on it, my supervisor said, this is trash. She just literally tore it in front of me. And I'm looking back and I'm like, that, though I was very hot, because that was one of the reasons why I was very hot, but I was looking back to what she did. And I said that I'm really grateful, because what my research was really focused on supporting the US pain system, like a pain scale for medicines for pain, right? And this research I've done, I cannot even tell you how the research I did in my undergrad has, you know, evolved from my career to even my, like what I'm doing in market access, right? It started from my undergrad research, because my research was like in market intelligence on malaria medications, the cost of treatment and all, like a health economics and outcomes research kind of project. So this is a very powerful session. So please, guys, if you have questions, raise your hands. I mean, you can take a couple questions, but I see some questions on the chat.
Yeah.
If you have any questions I want to speak, please speak, and then we can. Okay. No questions. Are you guys good to go? Okay, we have one question on the chat. I mean, if you are here, if you want to speak, you can speak.
It's good evening from this side. Thank you very much for the session. I have come to learn a lot actually. So my question is regarding the part where you stated you published three works during your undergraduate. But here we carry out one research project as an undergrad. So I want to ask like how were you able to do that, and like if one, since you stated that we must not cross, like there is an ethical border of not publishing 3 different articles, right? It's against the ethics to publish in 3 different journals, sorry. So
Right.
like how can one like carry out such a feat? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comment. Yes, yes, yes.
Can we see your
What?
face? Yeah, we can see you
Okay.
now.
So the thing is, it depends on the objective of your research. You know, for some research, you have like 5 or 4 objectives. And what that means is that you can actually decide to publish those objectives separately. For instance, for my thesis, I actually deal with pharmacy students. I dealt with aspects of their knowledge regarding smoking cessation. I also moved to pharmacy schools. I moved to also review the curriculum. So you see, it's different aspects. My study is coming from different aspects. So I decided that, oh, okay, what we are going to do, I told my supervisor that we can actually split this thing into 3 papers, because they are really, really different and they are not so coherent like that. Though they are under the broad umbrella of understanding smoking cessation from pharmacy students. That's my thesis title, from pharmacy practice, from pharmacy education to practice. Understanding smoking cessation from pharmacy education to pharmacy practice. I have pharmacy school included. I mean, the deans of pharmacy schools in Nigeria included in my thesis. I also have another aspect that actually focus on just pharmacy students in UI alone, and I have another aspect that focus on community pharmacists in Ibadan. You can see that they are in a way fragmented, so it's a bit different. So I can try to publish everything in one paper in one journal at a time, but some journal will find it difficult to actually connect the dots. So the best thing you can do is to separate. But I also understand that there are some theses where they are just answering just one research question. That's what they're focusing on. That's fine. That means that you can only publish one paper from your thesis. So my thesis is not that I'm publishing the same thing. So I split it into 3 papers, one on the dean of pharmacy schools across Nigeria, one on pharmacists, knowledge of pharmacists in Ibadan, community pharmacists in Ibadan regarding smoking cessation, another one on pharmacy students. What is their knowledge to smoking cessation? Are they happy to also to implement it when they are practicing? You see that they are like 3 different things. So they are not the same, and they're not the same paper. So it's not against ethics to actually publish them differently. So I'm not publishing pharmacy student paper in different journals. No. What I did was that I published just that aspect of pharmacy students in one journal, one on the dean, on how they actually inculcate smoking cessation in the pharmacy school curriculum. That's another aspect. Another one on pharmacy students. Another one on community pharmacists in different journals. So that's how I come about the 3 papers for my thesis. So for some people, maybe you are working on a very limited area and you only have one research question. That means that you cannot split that. So it's not that I publish the same paper in different journals. It's different aspect of my work in different journals. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, he says thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
We have Idris. Idris, I don't know if you're on, if you want to say it, but we have Idris and Iyano on. Okay, let me read Idris' question. It says, thank you so much for this insightful session. I gained a lot. My question is, I'm a final year student doing my research in pharmaceutical research, and I have a passion for public health. What would love to do my master's in that space. I want to ask if I can intersect microbiology with public health.
Yes, anything is possible now. I have people that they have background in microbiology, but they are now into epidemiology, public health research. There's always possibility, and it depends on your own interest and you getting possible role models of people that have achieved similar feats, and you can follow their path. But it's always possible for you to move from different one feat to another. Of course, I train as a pharmacist, but right now I'm not doing anything pharmacy like that. I'm doing things more in epidemiology, more research aspects of public health, of health in general. So it depends on you and how you really want to navigate that. But it is possible. You are not restricted. So that means that for you now, you can decide to do your master's, let's say, in areas that you think is relevant to your interest now, or that you think is going to add to your capacity, and you can go ahead to also do a PhD. So it is possible. Yeah.
Okay,
I hope I answered the question.
I don't think the person is here. Okay, so Iyano is the last question. The person who asked the last one is not here. But yeah, Iyano, do you want to go ahead or?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Idris is here. Go ahead, Iyano.
Thank you so much. Okay, so for me, I've read papers like it's final year. We've been forced to like read papers and analyze the scientific papers. But then one thing I've noticed is that every author always has like recommendations to drop. But most of these recommendations are not yet implemented. Like right now, I'm doing my project with geriatrics. Most of the things they complain to me when I read journals, I see those recommendations in those journals. I'm like, God is taking this off for this implementation area because you mentioned something related to that policymakers can call you to ask about your research. Like if I want to go into that area, what do you think I need to start doing?
Thank you very much. I mean, this is very, very important. And in our own setting, there's a bit of disconnect between the research world and what's our engagement with policymaker. That disconnect is there. And for me, I can't really blame any researcher because researchers are not meant to implement. It is for policymakers to look at the evidence, to call for the evidence, to call for the experts to talk about their work. But if they're not doing that, I think as researchers as well, we also need to continue to push our work, share our work. For instance, I just completed a review, a research paper looking at AMR and how the AMR National Action Plan across 14 African countries and how they engage marginalized population. You know, AMR is a global public health problem. So once I was done, like in the past few weeks now, we are looking for ways to engage with African cities, to engage with national AMR coordinators. We're looking for ways to also send our paper. It's published now. We send our paper to WHO for some level of awareness about our findings. So that's how you actually push your work from the researchers aspect. But I know in our own setting, even if you push your work, it depends on the political will for them to actually say, oh, let's use this work to advance knowledge. But we don't have to stop. We have to try as much as possible to engage the public with our work as much as we can. So there's a major gap, and you've identified something that is important: translation of evidence into policy and practice. Compared to the Western world, where they actually do focus research, they do research because they've seen a need for it and they actually want to use it to implement or advance things. For instance, my PhD now is actually, I'm working directly with the Scottish government because my findings is going to actually translate to pandemic preparedness in Scotland. That's what I'm working on. Because, and that's why they fund that particular PhD, so that I can do my analysis, I can do my research, so I can translate that into policy brief, or my findings can be useful to them to protect vulnerable population in the next pandemics, which we don't know. But right now, I don't think anything like that is going on in our own setting where we look back at what happens during COVID and we're trying to look for ways to actually improve how we prepare against public health pandemic, like pandemic that can affect public public health greatly, or that can affect our healthcare system. We're not really doing anything to reflect. So, but we also actually have to actually look for ways to do that through our own ways, through our own platform, maybe advocacy, talk about your work, and all sorts of things. But you've identified a very good area, and we have people called implementation. We have an area called implementation research. We have something called implementation science, and we have implementation scientists as well, where their own role is to look at the evidence that is available and see ways we can actually use this evidence to advance knowledge. So after this call, I will urge you to check what we mean by implementation science, implementation researchers, or implementation research as well. You will see different things, and it's really a new area that people are actually going into now. That how can we do research that we translate into policy and practice? And also another angle you can come in from is to come in from the policy angle. You can even be a policy maker, maybe you contest, you become governor, you become president of your state, or governor of your state, or you become chairperson and you start using the evidence. That's also another way, really. And we encourage people to actually do that as well, researchers to go into politics. But even if you're not going to politics as a researcher, there's a way you can actually make sure that the evidence that we have available is actually translated into policy and practice. And that's what implementation scientists, implementation research is all about. How can we use those evidence to advance or to implement, to make sure that we use those knowledge and we translate them into policy and practice as much as we can. But if you look at it, it's not really a core role of researcher. Researcher is to generate, they are there to generate the evidence. But right now, I think researchers also have to look for ways to push their work as much as possible so that policymakers can see what they found out and they can use those things to advance knowledge. And one thing that people are doing right now is to engage with organizations that actually need the work. Right now, we know that the National Action Plan for AMR is actually being coordinated by WHO. So what we did was that we look for WHO, we look for African CDC and other stakeholders. We send our paper to them. We write some form of brief on our findings so that they can actually use them. So as researchers, I also agree that we should not sit and just wait for our work to be used. It's the role of the university as well to connect the industry and to connect the researchers together, make sure that we are connecting, we are communicating our work, we are using our work to influence policy and practice as much as we can. So it's very good area, an interesting area that you can explore: implementation science, implementation research area, earth policy, which I think you're going to find really interesting if that's your own core passion. So you can start to do your master's in implementation science. And I think there's one we have different fundings now, people trying to fund that kind of aspect so that people can actually build capacity on how we can actually translate evidence into policy and practice. You've identified a very good area, which I think you should continue to push and build your capacity in that area. Do your master's if you want to do that to build more capacity and skills in that area. I hope that is clear.
My God, thank you so much, Yusuf. Like, this is so helpful. If I just wrote it down, like I need to do a course on implementation science. When I was working, we used to hear a lot about that, implementations and implemented, but it's becoming a thing. And he has challenged you, go for a master's in implementation so that you become a policy translator. But great one. Yeah, this is where we get inspiration. And because of time, I think we have one last question. Maybe just keep it very brief. Somebody asked, do they charge to publish our work? You guys, you hear that? So make sure you publish your research. This has been a very insight. I personally have learned, my notes are full. Like I've learned a lot from you, Yusuf, on how to publish my research. And I'm even going to maybe go back to my final year research. I'll publish it. Yeah, luckily I have 2 papers from that, but like, if not because of my supervisor was very mindful of that, I probably would have never even thought about publishing my research. So you guys have the opportunity now to make sure that you publish your research. I'm telling you, in the next 5-6 years, that's where you will know the importance. Even this peer review Yusuf is talking about, they'll ask you, have you been a reviewer of other people's work? They'll ask you, cite the works you've reviewed. Have you been a reviewer of other people? This even one application I'm writing, that they will ask that question, and you begin to ask, okay, what have I reviewed? Luckily for me, my previous work, I did a lot of work with government, so that was what helped me. But that could be somebody's way to answer that question. I've reviewed journals. These are the evidence of journals I've reviewed. So please take it very serious, everything that he has said today. Start your Google Scholar profile. I mean, you still need to talk about that, but that's very important to your ResearchGate or something like that. You need to be present. Okay. Thank you so much, Yusuf. This has been very helpful. We are so glad to have this opportunity, and we hope to make you proud and make sure that we put the knowledge out there for people to be able to use. Many people don't know many things about Africa. Like when I was in Hopkins, that's the reason why I did this challenge. Right. When I was in Hopkins, I was part of the drug access and affordability, and you don't know anything, and you're like, what's happening? And that's when I realized that there's a gap. We don't put out our information on what is happening in our market. So please, guys, you have done your research. Now is your time to publish it and be a master of your own space. People are going to reach out to you, like if you reach out to Yusuf. Oh, isn't it? What's happening in Ibadan? What is happening in Nigeria? They don't know, and that's why you're an expert for your own research that you've conducted. Please, let's say a big thank you to you. Let's give him a digital clap as we wrap up this session. Thank you so much, Yusuf, and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.